All right, so we have our cameras dialed and we are ready to go, guys. And this is going to be history in the making once again, as you see here, Transformation Greatness, along with the Small Business Network podcast, have relocated. Normally, we do our episodes as far as in the Creation Center back at home where all the magic happens. I'm actually here in Atlanta, Georgia. But because of the fact that I'm still here at work, and but some of you may know that I'm a maintenance tech, and part of the job as being a maintenance tech is that you have to be on call at least once a week. And so, do you like the brand new location? I'm in the office. Don't tell nobody. But tonight, guys, we have a very special guest here. Very special guest. And I want to bring her along. I want to bring her on. And as I'm doing that, I'll let you know this is going to be a very special and awesome podcast episode. For starters, is because of the fact that she is back home, New York City. So that's everybody know that's where I'm from, Brooklyn. Stand up, you already. And on top of that, what she's about, she is a mental health advocate, and definitely when it comes to suicide prevention, she is someone that has been at the forefront for quite some time. She has like amazing programs. She's doing a lot, her and her husband Joe. And just basically from where she started from where she's at now, and the noise in which that she is making is so much in a positive manner. And ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be an honor and a privilege to be able to have on our very special guest, Calandria Orojo. I like how that sounds. Calandria Orojo. Yeah, nice, nice. So do me a favor, guys, if you will, as Calandria is getting her camera adjusted and everything else. If you're catching this on the live, put in a hashtag live. Let us know exactly on where you're tuning in from. And if you should be happy to catch this on a replay because you're out and about, handling business, etc., then by all means put in, replay and let us know where you're tuning in from. So with no further ado, we have here, as far as to my right, New York bound, Calandria Orojo. I like it. Oh boy, I love it.
Trying the roll of the tongue. I see you though. I hear you though.
Yeah.
I can hear the Boricua in there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, fun fact. It's funny you mention that because I do have, as far as Boricuas in my family, I have about 4 or 5 cousins that's Puerto Rican. Oh yeah.
Okay, that's what.
Oh yeah. So I know. I listen. I know all about the bodegas and the rosco pollo and all that good stuff. Believe me, I know now. I get down there. I tear it up with some salsa now. I mean, what? Anyway, that's another topic for another day. But first and foremost, how are you doing? How's your week going?
It's going well. It's going well. It's a transition. I have my son here. He's 28. A miracle in itself. That's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, it's been a long couple of weeks, but it's all good. It's work itself out as always.
Absolutely. So, Calandra, if you can just do the listener audience a favor, because I know you and I've been seeing as far as your work and been seeing your website, and by the way, great stuff. And we met before. I can't remember as far as the group. So
it was about a year ago. Well, 2 years ago now. Yeah, it's been 2 now.
Yeah, been 2 years now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah.
Ain't that something? You see how time flies when you're busy and having fun. I'm telling you. But can you do us a favor? Because a lot of my listener audience, they have no idea on who you are. So can you please introduce yourself? Just tell them just a little bit about who you are. Don't give them the whole bag, because that's what the interview's for.
Right. Well, I mean, for the most part, I'm a mom. I have 5 children and 5 grandbabies. I am a survivor of mental health challenges as well. And I have been an advocate for many, many years. And I've worked in the field for a while now. I've had my organization up and running. My son is 21. So I think he was a year old when I started to build on what Living Proof Outreach was going to be. And, for the most part, my career came out of out of my lived experience. So, for the latter part of the last, 15, 20 years, I have became an advocate. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't, in a real world, I would have went to school and became a nurse and been somebody's charge nurse somewhere and doing my thing there. But God had another plan for me. So, yeah. And I
Indeed.
am proudly 50 years old. I wear that crown very well. I am 50 and loving it. I just turned 50 in August. So, yeah.
Amen. Amen. Awesome. Awesome. And we just want to just say hello as far as to those that's tuning in. We have here Dr. James McConnell. So that's James MBC, aka the mad scientist. He's actually, my partner in crime here. So just want to say hello. And Dr. James, if you can do me a favor, my friend, if you can just go ahead and just share this out to our respective platforms, just let our other co-hosts know that we're on and we're rocking and rolling with our special guest here, Calandra Orojo. That's going to be fun. So, Calandra, if you can just let the listening audience know more so about your brand and your business, because you did mention as far as you've been in the field for about 20 years and you're a survivor of mental health. So, you can just tell us a little bit more about that, please.
So yeah, Living Proof Outreach was actually born out of some experiences that I had. Most of it has been surviving the system, right? And so early on in one of my first traumatic events was burying my children's father. So he passed away before my son and I birthdays on the same day, August 15th. So he was killed August 9th here in Staten Island. So by the time I turned 19, not only was I a mom, but I was a single mom, and I had buried my first fiance at 19. So that began what you would call automatic kind of trauma, where the trauma happens and you just kind of put your gear in automatic and you just go, you do what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
And so, but
survival
living in
mode.
New York, we were, living in New York, I had experienced trauma prior to that, right? That wasn't my first experience with death. That wasn't my first experience with gunshots, none of that. It's just that's the first time it happened that close to me.
Right.
And now I had a son that I had to raise outside of that situation. And so to me, that set the stage for that word resiliency that a lot of people use when they describe me. I can't say that when it happened that I put on that hat, because that's not what happened. I just literally knew I had to take care of this young boy, and I had to do it either outside of New York, because that was it. Like New York had took the last thing that it was gonna take from me, right? But I am also a sexual abuse survivor. So I've been sexually abused from the age of 2. So those two combos kind of created this empathy that I can't even describe it. I can walk in a room and I could just know who needs what, especially when it comes to young women, right? And so that's not a gift that I asked for, but it's a gift I have, right? And so in your 20s, you're trying to figure out what your gift is, or if you're even gifted, right? In your 30s, you think you bumped into your gift and you got it all figured out. In your 40s, you like, yeah, I got this, it's cool, right? But then you hit 40 and you like, you know what, I really don't know much about this, right? And so I know what I felt, I know what I experienced, but there's a thing we talk about, 5 stages of change, right? And there comes a point where you got to come out of maintenance. You got to begin to put some action in to maintain whatever that change may be, right? So we think it takes 90 days to change a behavior, but it takes a little bit more than 90 days if you think about it. So I had many things happen back to back And then as a result of that, I had children. So children were involved. And then as a result of that, I moved. So I moved from New York and I moved to Virginia, upstate New York. From upstate New York, I moved to Virginia. And Virginia was my breeding ground. Like it was like taking a raw tree that wasn't growing here and we put it in sunlight. We put it next to water. We put it next to animals and deers. And I really did, become what I needed to become to survive all of what I had just went through, right? But I still became homeless. I still had to fight the system to get my children back. And most of those things have happened to people that do suffer with mental health challenges because there's no supports there.
Right.
If I was an addict, I would have been surrounded by all these supports and courts and judges and
Right.
lawyers, right? But because I was dealing with mental health challenges and I was Latina and I didn't, my grandmother, my mother, none of them believed in going to a psychiatrist, going to a therapist, none of that, right? And so I'm the first of my family to break that curse. I'm the first to seek help outside of the parameters of the family. The family didn't have a clue. Most of my uncles were addicts and died as a result of their addiction. So I was the first of my family to say, you know what, y'all don't have this figured out and y'all don't have the answers for me. And as much as I tried to seek it in church didn't have it for me neither. So it snowballed into this relationship that I tapped into, especially when it comes to my relationship with God, because when you put somebody in the ground at such a young age, you tend to just think, I never thought about death the same after that. I had to reteach myself what that meant. I had to teach my son as he grew what that meant. And I always say that God always meets us right at our trauma. He really does. It's just a matter of us trusting that trauma didn't happen to destroy us. I've learned through those challenges and through facing those challenges with the Holy Spirit and with Christ in my life, I've learned how to take something that the enemy truly did design to destroy me and kill me. And I've learned to take it and go, okay, I see the trickery, I see the confusion, I see the anger, I see the unforgiveness. Am I going to allow that to soak me up to the point where I destroy myself, but then also I destroy my children, right? So there had to be some peace. I had to make peace with things that I didn't have answers to at the moment, things that God was going to hide certain things from me until I was able and ready and strong enough to spiritually, embark on that, right? And so out of helping other people is where Living Proof Outreach was born, because I felt like the more I talked about it in my own head, the more it stayed alive. But the more I focused on trying to help somebody else, the less I was focused on what happened to me, right? And a lot of times they tell psychiatrists, stop asking people what happened to them. Stop asking people what's wrong with them and ask them what happened to them. Because usually it's in the trauma where you can figure out where it happened, right? And most people get stuck at their place of their first pain. So if your first traumatic event was 3 because the cops rolled in your house, knocked down the door, snatched your brother out, gong, like that's your first experience with the police. That's your first experience with the trauma, separation anxiety, all that stuff, right? Correct. I experienced all that stuff before I hit 10, right? So in addition to whatever else was going on in the household. So when I got to Virginia, I decided that I was going to create an environment that did not look like what I just came out of.
Okay.
And I did everything the opposite of that. But ironically, even though I thought I was doing everything the opposite, there still were things that I did repeat. So generational curses are real, and a lot of what we encounter as a minority community it does come from some generational things that we really, really have to begin to tackle and stop focusing on what everybody else outside of our community can do for us. Because until we get back to fixing our own communities, you know, there was times where we would not go outside of our own communities. We would only
Right.
go to grandma, abuelita, auntie, titi, whatever, right? But now we've separated ourselves so bad that it's like, not only do we not trust we don't trust each other.
Correct.
You know, so Living Proof Outreach was born out of a lot of different aspects. Suicide awareness and prevention became something that the Spirit really just doesn't allow me to run from. I think I spoke about that earlier today. As much as I have tried to hang up that hat and, you know, say I could take all these trainings and all these workshops and all these things and just do something completely different, I cannot get away from my purpose. I believe my purpose is to help reduce the amount of suicides that our community faces. I believe that my purpose is to share from a lived experience place how to navigate that, even with the Spirit of God.
Hold that one thought. That you said a lot in this, man. That this is awesome. This is very juicy. For all those that's just coming to attendance, we just want to welcome, as far as everybody from the listening audience, Calandra. I don't know, can you see the comments on your end, Calandra?
I cannot, no.
Okay. We have here, let's see here. So we have from Dr. James, we have here Coach Beverly in the house. We have here my entrepreneur twin Chrissy in the house. We have here Dr. Jaquala in the house. And so far, I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. You're getting like a lot of engagement, a lot of people most certainly relating as far as on what you're saying. And, you know, this is definitely powerful. Something in which that you mentioned, I'm going to throw a pop-up question at you. Right. And remember, I told you I'm going to ask you some pop-up questions.
That's
right. You mentioned about purpose.
I'm ready.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. I love it. You talked about purpose. And it took you a while to understand your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing. And I guess my question is, because it kind of varies for everybody. When do you know, in your opinion, when do you know that, okay, this is my calling, this is my purpose, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and not doing A, B, and C, and D?
When you can't sleep, when that one thing wakes you up in the middle of the night, when that one thing, no matter where you go, you could be at the supermarket and for whatever the reason is, nobody else sees the suicidal person, but you do, right? When people talk about it and you're moved to tears and everybody else in the room is like, what's wrong? Like, I can't get away from the fact that I know what it felt like to not want to be here. Like, that's a true story, right? And I've had 3 attempts. I've had 3 vital attempts where I shouldn't be here, right? And so when the Spirit of God, and I'm gonna always claim He did it, because nobody could have brought me from that darkness but Him, right? And when you know that it's not just the doctors, it's not just the therapy, it's not just psychiatry, it's not just, you know, sitting with your own self. It's a commitment. I made a commitment to self, but then bigger than that, I made a commitment to who God called me to be, because we spend most of our lives being who somebody else told us we were, right? And when you're first diagnosed, all you hear is those words, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's personality disorder, whether it's addiction, all you hear is they just called me an addict. Correct. Or they just called me bipolar, and there's never no context to it, right? It's, hey, this is what it is. Let me tell you what the DSM-5 says about it, and now let's treat your symptoms. But see, when you're delivered, there's a difference. I'm not just healed, I'm delivered. And when you're delivered, you walk that out differently. You know, I don't walk walk this out pretending like physically I'm not going through it.
Okay.
Physically, my body, as long as I live on this planet, I'm going to go through something, right? But am I spiritually delivered? And to me, that deliverance does not come overnight. Most of us are microwave babies. We want it now, 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 now. And that's not what recovery is. Recovery is a continuum. If you make a choice and a commitment, you're making a choice to continue something. That's why it's an ERY, not recovered. You don't recover from some of these things. Can you live with them at the table? You have to find a way to repackage it. When I talk to most people on my one-on-ones, I always tell them, I'm going to teach you how to reframe your story. Because the more you keep telling yourself you're a victim, the more you keep telling yourself that happened, that happened, that happened, the less you can focus on where God wants you to be. Because you can't walk backwards and you can't cross the street blind. It's not possible. Like, at some point, you got to allow God to do what only God can do. And God, JoJo was working on this word called abyss. God knows how to get in the abyss of your soul and take out what needs to be taken out, put in what needs to be put in. But then while you're taking out and putting in, face it, because there's no running from it. You can't run from the fact that somebody has been sexually traumatized. You can't tell that person, girl, get over it. Boy, you all right. Man up.
Right.
No,
Right.
Cry that cry, scream, yell, throw something, like, get it out. Because the more you hold on to it and the more you allow the enemy to use it to destroy you and everything around you. Because that's what it's designed to do. Most people assume that it's just about them. No, because if I destroy one, if he takes one of us out, that's many that he took out. Because you think about somebody that completed suicide, right? That's thousands of people they never touched after that day. That's correct. Thousands of people their voice will never be heard. Their story will never be told. Who knows who God was going to put in these folks' path, right?
Right.
And so that's the aha moment I came to many, many years ago. It was like, wow, Kalen, you really think it's about you, and it's not. It's about what God is going to do through you. But I got to understand it first. In order for me to present it as a living sacrifice, right, I have to understand it. I have to come to a place, me and JoJo always say, sanity. I have to walk what sanity looks like out, but I can't walk their version of it out. Because clinically, they got a version, right? And clinically, they're going to tell you all these things. Oh, your daughter, your son, he's ADD, he's ADHD. They love throwing around those words. They love it. Because a check comes with it. More money to the school comes with it. There's a systematic thing that comes with diagnosing somebody, right? Same thing with an addict. They don't want you clean. Because if you get clean, you ain't never got to come back to them for nothing. So if we continue to create the confusion, we continually generate the funds. See, $2.5 million doesn't get allocated to a state or location if there's no need for it. So if there's no addicts, then there's no need to allocate $2.5 million for addiction, right? So, there's just a systematic place that I'm at. And then culturally, I understand that we're already in a disparity. Forget about the mental health. Medically, we don't get what they get. Medically, they don't tell us the same thing. They don't send us to the same specialists. They don't send us to the same doctors. They don't give us the same medications medically. So if you can imagine the disparity on the medical side, can you only imagine what it is on the psychiatric side of it? We can count how many Black psychologists we have. We can count how many Black psychiatrists we have, right? And let's not just talk about Black, but just other. It doesn't even have to be just Black, but other, so that there's a cultural understanding across the table. See, when we're in our home as a Boricua, you might hear us loud as hell in there, right? We're not arguing. We having fun. We eating. We doing what we do. Culturally, that's accepted. But you take that same behavior and move to one of the backwoods in Virginia and you that loud, cops is pulling up. They like, oh my God,
Correct.
who's got the fighting,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But culturally, we're used to walking around and hearing noises and gunshots going off. Not that that's cool, but we get it, right?
Right.
And so I just decided for myself that the God in me was bigger than what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
See, God was in it all, regardless of who did it. No, regardless of who the perpetrator was, God still saved my life, man. And when you recognize that you're not just saved for you, Christ just died for us, right? Rose for us, right? He didn't do that for one of us. There's no respect the person when it came to that. That was done for all of us. Now, all of us walking out that acceptance? Absolutely not. Are all of us walking out that grace, that mercy, and that favor? Absolutely not. But it looks different in my life because of who God allowed in my life, even the negative people, even the people with an S that have traumatized me. Even though that trauma exists, deliverance exists, healing exists, forgiveness exists, understanding exists. And when you get to that place, it's like there is no more turning back. I don't know how. I don't want to look back and tell the story from a place of, oh my God, all these things happened to me. And let me just tell you step by step. Nah, that don't matter. Yes, all of it happened. And I'm a survivor of all of it, but I'm delivered from it as well. And being delivered means I'm not angry. I'm not seeking vengeance. I'm at peace. And I have forgiven myself, because whether we realize it or not, when we're challenged with this addiction, whether it's addiction or mental illness, it takes a long time to understand that it's not your fault.
Right.
It takes a long time to understand that, okay, let that part of it go, that chemically, if you add a certain chemical, or oil to a vinegar, H2O to something else, you add two separate powerful elements together. If they not right, a whole bomb could go off.
Correct. That is correct.
Right? So that's what happens in a child's brain when it or she is traumatized. And some of us been traumatized from the womb. Most of us that was born in the 70s had something in our system. Believe that. Whether it was weed, whether it was alcohol, whether it was whatever it was. Most of us babies that were born in the 70s, mommies wasn't clean then. My mother was 17 and smoking as much weed as she can get her hand on. So, the trauma began long before I even hit the ground. But it's unspoken of because we're busy focusing on what happened as a result of the trauma. See, what happened as a result of the trauma is I had kids back to back. I ran like I got the best running shoes ever. I know how to pack my clothes and be out going like that.
Okay.
Right? My fright and flight is no joke, right? So I taught myself these behaviors because I had to survive. They're called survival mechanisms. But see, it's the same way that somebody survives something. You leave jail. Don't you take that orange suit with you? But the numbers are still in that man's head.
Correct.
See, he still remembers the numbers because they didn't call him by his name. They called him by a number.
Correct. That is correct.
Right? And the same thing happens in the mental health system. It's just that they're not calling me by my name. They're calling me by the diagnosis.
Gotcha. Kalendra, before you move forward, I just want to say here, this is absolutely amazing, and I'm just looking at the comments that I can, and it's a ton. So a lot of people are definitely relating to this. And for those that's just tuning in now, please welcome to here Transformation Greatness, along with the Small Business Network podcast. And we have a very special guest here, which is mental health advocate and survival prevention, the one and only Kalendra Orojo.
He gonna get it right.
Yeah. Listen, it's all good. Kalendra, a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So with your foundation, what you and Brother Joe is doing, And you mentioned it earlier before, but if you can just elaborate. So how does, as far as like your, I believe you guys have a nonprofit foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
Not nonprofit.
Okay. Okay. I apologize.
I,
So instead of products, I guess the question I want to ask you is that what services are you providing as far as to your client base, to people as far as in New York City and other places,
so,
respectively? And
so we're
Joe can jump on this too if you like, because I see him peeping in the
yeah,
background.
yeah. Well, one thing I can say that we're working diligently on is a program that I created. Another one of those in my sleep, woke up and God gave me Save Our Friends Talk. So it's called Save Our Friends Talk. And my goal with this soft line, because there's a technical word called warm line, right? And a warm line is something that the feds created so that there will be a 24-hour line for somebody to call and get services, right? So if I'm suicidal, I can dial 988. I'm going to get somebody on the telephone. They're going to ask me how, what's wrong? How you doing? How are you from a scale of 1 to 10? All same generic questions they've been asking for the same 30 years, right? After
Okay.
I get up that phone call, if I am suicidal, either 911 is going to come knock at my door, or if they decide that I'm not suicidal, I'm just going to get a pep talk. But there's never no follow-up. There's never no
Mm.
connection to services. There's never no support. There's never anything after that. It's just that phone call and that's it. So what I created after sitting in many, many board meetings, I was like, you know what? This could be done better than that, right? And then I'm a believer. So I thought about how God took me along the way and how many people it took to get me there, right? It was a village, literally. So I'm like, okay, what if I create that village for someone and they get to have services with us for one full year? So anybody that calls that line, whether it's a crisis or not a crisis, they get to have my services for an entire year. Because here's where the feds go wrong. They think
Okay.
because I'm suicidal today that it went away and we good because we had a phone call and we Gucci. No, we not. I might still be living in my domestic violence situation. That person
Mm.
may still be living with the trauma or in the trauma, right? So what supports can I give them? And then secondly, there's a huge list, waiting list to get in to see anybody, from a psychiatrist to a therapist. Their lists are 3 to 4, sometimes 6 months long to get in for services. And
Right.
don't let you be a working bee. Don't let you be somebody that's a 9 to 5 and you got an income. You're not of concern to them because you're not in crisis. You're not outside acting like a fool. There's no attention being brought to you. You are what we say suffering in silence, right?
Right.
So that's a
Right.
whole population that doesn't get spoken about, right? And especially during this pandemic, you
Correct.
had people that have had their first anxiety attack because everybody
Mm-hmm.
was wearing masks. You
Yep.
had people that experience, especially our Black men, that experience and said out loud, yo, I'm depressed. Like, yo, I'm feeling this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first step for us, especially our Black men, to be able to feel safe and to create an environment where they can say, yo, I'm not feeling this. Like, I'm not feeling good on the inside, right? But but that space has to be created. And so that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create space. I'm trying to create space for people to be educated. I'm trying to create space where people can use the right jargon, because I'm tired of crazy. I'm tired of doing too much. I'm tired of all those words. And then my thing is, don't just talk about it when we know somebody on TV that did it. Because somebody is
Mm-hmm.
dying, no disrespect to paid in full. Somebody dying every day, B. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's serious. Like, to me, they're getting younger and younger and younger, right? So what we've seen happen during the pandemic is that more Black men killed themselves during the pandemic. More men took their lives and then took their families with them during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. That was
That
something else. Yeah.
had more women traumatically take lives out this time. So they weren't doing it in simple ways like swallowing pills and things of that nature.
Right.
They were using guns. They were driving their cars off bridges. It's been very, very different styles of deaths over the past 2 to 3 years. And they have become a lot more aggressive, is what we call it. Right. And so with that being said, I just have been taking an aggressive stance and saying let's not, because the mental health field has a very bad example of celebrating May, it's recovery month, celebrating September, it's National Recovery Month. So we pick these months and we concentrate on this one thing for that 1 month. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but the suicide numbers are still going higher and higher and higher. So why do I have to pick a month to focus on it? I'm going to pick the year to focus on it. I'm not going to let up. And whoever God puts in my path is who I'm going to help, period. And that line as of May will be open 24/7. So if somebody calls at 3 a.m, you're not going to get a computer. It's going to be a person to pick the phone up. Right, then that person is going to follow up, because it's okay to answer that phone at the 3 wee hours of the morning. I might have stopped you that morning, but you could still make up your mind that next day to go follow through. So I'm going to call you back at 10 in the morning and say, hey, I spoke to you last night. I just want to make sure you're okay. What can we do to help? See, it's that follow through that's missing. And that's a systematic follow through. We're inundated right now. There's too many customers and not enough people to go to. So it's almost having a McDonald's and all the burgers done sold out and there's nobody else, but the customers are still waiting outside the door.
Right.
That is our mental health system right now. We have people waiting outside the door screaming for help, but because either they're working class, they've never, had to see a psychiatrist before, it's just a unique situation that we're in right now, and it's not talked about enough. And then people don't know where to start. People
right.
Okay, what is the psychiatrist going to do? What is the psychologist going to do? Okay, if I take the medicine, am I going to be more crazy? If I don't take the it's just this whole dance that happens, and what happens is they dance their way either to addiction or they give up. Or there's even the middle part of that is I'm going to pretend and fake the funk like nothing ain't wrong, and I'm going to keep living my life like nothing ain't wrong. Meanwhile, everything around you is wrong. You're not living, you're not happy, you're not getting up and going to work, you're not finding any fulfillment. Like, it's just real that this it's a vast amount of people that are dealing with it. And our teenagers are dealing with it, our children. If I hear about another mass shooting and they keep bringing that joint on the news, that traumatizes our children. It makes it so our children don't want to go outside. They don't want to go to the park because they're afraid. And when you're walking out fear, there's no faith in that. The devil got us on the run right now. And some of us got to stop running. Some of us got to put on our war shoes. Some of us got to take off the cute little church hats and put on a hood and get to fighting, because there's a mental war happening in our mind that is destroying our communities like that. And we're losing right now.
Absolutely. You know what, Calandra? I was going to ask you a question here, but you answered that so eloquently too. And I tell you, mental health and suicide prevention, for what you're doing, right, and you're bringing awareness on that, is something that I would have to say it takes a lot of courage to do, because you mentioned it earlier as far as in this interview, from where we're from, as far as the Black community, that's something growing up, especially in the 70s and 80s, we just didn't talk about. We really, really didn't. And me, you had this conversation before, and I even told you, and I'll share with everybody else here, is that, man, imagine if we brought more awareness on mental health back in those days. I can just imagine how many more of my family members and people that I knew coming up would still be alive, right? So it just really, it makes you think. It really makes you think. And for the fact that it has gotten worse, not so much better, but worse. I can definitely see on how a person like yourself will be super passionate about that and be driven. And before I ask you the next question, I just want to make a point to everybody, and this is for those that may say, "Well, I don't know my purpose. I don't know my calling. I really don't know." My definition or my response to that'd be better. My response is that you see how the way that she's very passionate, dare I say, obsessed with the cause and helping so many lives with the gift that she has because she understands her purpose. Likewise for you, man or woman that's listening to this. Find out your passion and your purpose. Try to find it as soon as you can. And get passionate, dare I say, become obsessed with it. Because when you do, the right people, just like what you stated, the right people will show up and they will be more than happy as far as to help you, provide resources, opportunities, situations. But you gotta find that thing within yourself that makes your heart sing, that makes it to be like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you just can't sleep because it's just rolling around in your spirit. And I can relate to that because for me, speaking, it's my absolute passion. I absolutely love this. I can speak all day. Virtually, on stage, person to person doesn't make a difference. This is something that I absolutely love and it's really in my spirit. This is me. This is my purpose. This is my gift. And likewise with yourself, with your purpose and with your gift, which is definitely a beautiful thing. I want to ask you this before we close, and I'll ask you to share your social media handles and your information. Because you and Joe have been doing great things for such a long time. And I asked you this before. You guys already created the network. You have your client base, your customer base, whatever you want to call it. And you guys can just say, you know what, with everything in which that we learned, right? We have our client base, we're having our customers, we have a steady influx, right? And just keep that to yourselves, right? And just say, well, we're just going to create our little thing and hey, that's us, right? And just be selfish about it. My question to both of you, if Joe would like to come in and answer. My question to you is that why now? Why is it so important to bring more awareness on mental health and suicide prevention with the services in which that you guys have, with the infrastructure that you guys have? Why now? Why now?
I'm gonna let Joe go first because he about to
Come,
explode
come,
over here.
come on. Hey, what's going on, Joe?
Because of all the things you go personally and all the things God has brought, all the things you have been through, um, all the things God has brought you out of,
Okay.
regardless if you a believer or not, we have a more of an edge because we know God. The people of the world don't know God. They know God, but not as God do they worship or thank Him. And the first sign of sanity is thankfulness towards our Creator. When you've been through a lot of stuff and God has brought you out of a lot of stuff, then now is now. It's just when you're ready. Because sometimes God hides you in the wilderness and His eye watches you. To Ezekiel 20, verse 17. His eye watches you and commiserate you. That means He sympathizes with you. And He sympathizes with everybody in the world. God wants to sit and talk. He wants to conciliate Himself back to us. So the time is always. There's never not a time. The time is now when we represent God the right way and present ourselves to people that need Him. Because people don't know that God is even with them in their wilderness.
Right.
Said, my eye is on those and commensurate to the children of Israel, so that they won't die. And what gets us is a lot of things we don't understand, we speak on, and we shouldn't. But the time is now, and it always will be, because people need to know that God is with them in everything. Your schooling, your academia, your spirituality, your social, whatever it is, God is with you. So because you've been through so much, you have to reach out to somebody, because you have to tell them that God is not just with you when everything is okay, when everything is all nice, you know. He's
Right.
with you.
Right.
David said, if I climb to the heavens, you are there. If I make my birth, my BERTA, my bed in Hades, you're there. God is everywhere, but people just don't acknowledge the fact that he's there. So the time is now, because we've been through so much, and God's eye is on us. We don't even know it. But they need people like us to say, I know you hurt, and I know you want to end it. I know you want, but we are all dying. But the God that we know, the Zoe, the God kind of life, we want to teach that so that people can know that God is there, that he loves us, that we're all dying, but yet we can enjoy life to that day. That's all.
And also that deliverance is that you don't have to receive your deliverance the day you die. Like, now, you know, the bigger thing about it being now is why not now? Why not now? Like, you know, I study this every year. Every year, I look for those numbers to look different. Every year, I look to see, you know, how many African American, how many Latinas, how many Asians, how many LGBTQ community. Like, I look at these numbers, and this year, for some reason, last year and this year, I was angered by the numbers. I didn't feel, I didn't feel what I felt 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It was something about those numbers after pandemic that I'm like, yo, I know some of them numbers. Some of them numbers are people's names. Forget that it says 30,100, da 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 da. No, I'm gonna give you. I can name some names, bruh, of people that are within our community, within our circle, that are not here with us right now, and they're not here because COVID took them out. They're not here because they were sick and in a nursing home and there just wasn't enough ventilators. No, some people chose to take themselves out, man. And I'm tired of our children. Not because, guess what? Every mom, every father, every aunt, every uncle, they left behind somebody. It's those of us that are left behind that look back and go, what in the world? What could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? How did I miss the call? Wait a minute, I wasn't paying attention on Facebook. And that's the problem. We got to stop. Some of us got to stop, look, and listen.
And the reason why
when you listen for the, don't listen for the comfortable answer.
No.
It's good to go, okay, Shawn, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good, I'm great. I can hear that. But what if Shawn said, nah, I'm not good, yo. Last night, yo, let me tell you, you know, it's that conversation that it doesn't happen enough on a regular basis in our community. So don't let it be somebody we know, right? Then we really don't know what to say. We really don't know what to do. But we got to stop allowing the ignorancy to push us in a corner and do nothing.
A lot of things have failed.
I was going to ask you.
Say it again.
I said a lot of things have failed. I just want to say a lot of things have failed. That's why the now is now.
Yeah.
Because I've watched for years people do things and they think by using a certain method that it's going to help. And there's so many programs now that they're easy to give you medicine. They're fast to give you something. But there's a depthness of our hurt that only you could feel through sympathy and empathy. And we notice that there's no empathy.
None.
None. You know what I mean?
It's about numbers. And when we bring Christ to the table, it really aggravates people.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, here they go again with this whole, and it's like, listen, this is going to be packaged different. That's why on my page, the only time you're going to see it is in my bio, because I don't want the atheists to be turned off.
Yeah.
I don't want the
I was going to
non-believers.
ask you that. I was going to ask you that.
Everybody
Right. What about the atheists?
that needs the help to get the help. It doesn't matter who it is, because I've seen people that don't believe in God look at me and go, girl, you saved my life. Like, just something you said, something you did. See, you gut checking me. You mirroring back to me what I'm saying, what I said out loud. But religion don't matter. There's no place in that. There's no place for religion when we're talking about mental illness, because we too focused on saying, well, let's just lay hands and Jesus got them and let's bring them to church. We need to do an altar call. Listen, I've seen people do the altar call and still go home and kill themselves. So
Wow.
if it was just Jesus, if it was just the church, if it was just Bishop, then we wouldn't have so many suicides that happened. And these were believers. These were people that went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday, probably twice on Monday.
Right. I understand.
We got to get away from demonizing people. Stop. It is probably the most death-defying things that you could do to somebody when they come to you in confidence as a leader and say to you, I'm not well, and the first thing you do is pull out the Bible. Sit with that for a minute, bro. Because maybe none of those scriptures in that book is jumping out at me right now.
I understand. We've been on this podcast for quite some time, and I definitely want to be a respecter of everyone's time. But I tell you, this has been packed full of great value, great information. I don't know about you all as far as in attendance, but I definitely have gotten a lot of great value, a lot of great wisdom, and this has just been absolutely amazing. I am curious, Calandra and Joe, how can people get a hold of you guys? What is your social media handles?
So the big thing would be my website is livingproofoutreach.org. All of the information that is relevant and up to date is on that website. There's a sheet that you can fill out at the end of it that you can send me directly. It comes directly to me. I handle my website. I actually do all the back end, front end of my website. And I encourage everybody to please go to the website, because one, that's how you would sign up for the workshops. Two, any events that we have coming up are up there. And I also have used it to advertise other folks' businesses as well. So if there's another business out there that's doing some awesome things, please, tell your audience, let me know. I have created a space where I put their name and their number and their information on there, and people can literally go there and stroll, not just to get my information, to get resources, period. So that's a huge thing. And then please, donate, because honestly, right now, I don't get any funds from the Fed, because I'm really praying about it'd be nice to get $50,000. It'd be nice to get $70,000. But when you get into bed with the Feds, you got to do as the Feds do. And so I'm not willing to lose my autonomy. And so I'm in talks with the Feds right now, trying to decide, am I going to stay private pay, which means that I would have to be hustling my butt off like I've been doing, and getting private donations, because I want to do this my way. I'm not going to allow somebody to come in and tell me, no, well, you got to do it this way. We're going to record this phone call, and we're going to, show up to your house when we feel like it. Like, I'm not beat for that. I'm in this to save lives, and I have to do it the way God tells me to do it.
Absolutely. Before we end this, well, actually, once this interview is over with, by all means, in the comment section, just make sure that you put all your pertinent information, all your social media handles, so that way people can most certainly get in contact with you and Joe. Before I let you two go, this is something that I like to ask all of my guests. I like to play a little devil's advocate, if you will, right? Everything that you guys said was, in fact, amazing, fantastic. But I'm going to play the person that's listening to this and that's going through a lot and saying, okay, Calandra, I understand. Joe, my brother, I appreciate y'all. But that don't apply for me, right? That sounds good and everything, but man, I'm going through so much right now, man. You guys can't even understand. Like, I don't even know even where to start. I mean, yeah, that sounds great. And I see the commercials and they got the meetings and all that other stuff, right?
Right.
Because it's a kid-friendly show, right? But I don't think that's really for me. And I don't trust nobody, I don't know who to talk to. It's like, I don't know. I'm just really not feeling that. I really, really don't know. Either one of you can answer this question, by the way. I want you to look in the camera and I want you to speak to that individual. What would you say to that man or woman that having that type of mindset and you can see it in their spirit that they want help, but they're just so resistant based upon everything in which I just mentioned?
Well, the first thing I would say is they would have to trust something. And when you're not well, trust in self, it ain't gonna happen. You can't trust your own self in that space, because in that space, the enemy has already convinced you that you don't even own the space you're in, right? And so much has happened that what I would say to that person is pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. Find somebody, you know what I mean? And my website is one of those places. Find somebody to get it out, because even if you don't trust you got to trust somebody else to hold that light for you until you can hold it for yourself. Yeah. And we all need somebody. Like, if the pandemic didn't teach us nothing else, man, it taught us that we need each other. Black, white, green, purple, believer, non-believer, we all needed each other, man. Like, we depended on strangers to drop us off food. We depended on strangers to make sure we ate. We depended on people we didn't know to make sure bills got paid. Like, listen, it taught us something. And to me, it got us back to being raw. That raw help, that shopping cart. I'm going to the store for Abuelita, Titi, and her friends. Yeah. And so we can't, there's certain things that there was a come away for me with that pandemic, and some stuff we should not stop doing. We shouldn't stop having dinner at the table. We shouldn't stop sitting down and doing homework with our children. We shouldn't stop checking on the people that we thought was okay but may not be okay. Like, we need to stay on that same grind, and help is out there. Help is out there. There is help, but you got to surrender. You got to, allow somebody to be to you what you can't be to yourself right now. And a lot of times it could be a hug. It could be the cup of coffee. It could be the Facebook meme that you might send to that person. You're like, yo, I haven't seen that person on Facebook in a while. Let me hit that person up. Boom. Right? So I just think we need to use these platforms for the good. We need to use these platforms to be able to reach the masses, because this ain't about the enemy. The enemy can't win something he already lost. He just got to convince the winners that they winners. Some people tell people we got to convince the winners that they're winners. Some of people are walking around and they didn't get their Heisman trophies, man. They didn't show up to the end game. That dinner we had at the end of the school year where everybody got something. Everybody walked away with a certificate or something, a trophy or something. There's a trophy out there for all of us, man. And some of us forfeited the game. Some of us didn't show up for the game. Some of us forgot we in the game.
Right.
Some of us forgot who we are.
That's real. That's real.
So we're not alone. And that's the bottom line. Like that, I do this to show people exactly what that says, that I'm living proof that you're not alone. And if I'm still here, and I done had 3 suicide attempts, I survived cancer in 2017. I'm surviving cancer today. Man, I could go on and on and on and on and on. Right? And statistically, they say I should have been dead, in jail, no children, period. I shouldn't be here. Statistically.
Right.
I was not supposed to be here. So most of us are that. Most of us shouldn't be here, but we are. What you going to do with it while you're here?
That's it.
Who you going to touch? Who you going to give to? Who you going to, and then are you going to give and scream at the top of the mountain you gave? Or you just going to give and humbly walk away? See, I want to be that giver that you don't even know it came from me. You just wake up one morning and be like, yo, I don't want nobody to know it came from me. I don't want to be a star. I want to be a change agent. And that's something different. See, change agents don't always get the pat on the back. Sometimes we get kicked out the room.
This is true.
Some of us get kicked out the room, right? So I'm okay getting kicked out the room as long as I get to say what I need to say. See, right. I'm not meant to make everybody comfortable. If I was supposed to be making everybody comfortable, I would have had 1.5 million followers. Yeah.
Right.
If I was I was doing this before it was cute, before it was cool. I was doing this, right? So if I was meant to do this for the likes and the shares, I would have been viral already.
Yeah.
Same here.
That's not what it's about. It's about touching who God allows me to touch and moving the rooms and the spaces that I'm supposed to be in. Because when you're invited by invitation, people's heart seems to be in a very different place than when you're invited just to disturb the peace. And I do disturb the peace, and I'm okay with that, right? But I know when, I know how, and I know where.
Yeah, because it ain't always about making friends.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna, truth offends people. And sometimes people that are in situations, they do need to know that you're not by yourself. The grace of God is good. The grace of God shows you that you're not by yourself. You're not by yourself. Like, I could smile today, and somebody could smile today and be gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's like our perception of people is one thing, but like, we just gotta know. People gotta know it all is up here, and they gotta know how to divorce certain thoughts, because every thought ain't yours. So people need to know the grace of God is real. Whether they want to hear it or not. The grace of God is show you that you're not by yourself. There's 10,000 more people over there that's going through everything you go through. So you got to find someone that you can speak to that can relate, that can understand that they either came out of it,
right,
or they in it, and y'all can go through it together, and it makes you stronger as humanity.
Makes sense. So let me just see here if there's any more other comments. And man, it looks like there's so many. Yeah, it's going. Yeah, I might to go back. It's going to probably take me about at least 2 hours just to engage with all the comments. But it is all good.
That might happen for me.
Yeah, it is all good. So, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another historic interview here from Transformation Greatness, along with the Small Business Network podcast with my special hosts here, Calandra and Joe Orojo. I like that name. And also, please, if you found anything in which that Calandra stated and Joe stated resonated with you, and you would love as far as to volunteer or even contribute to the cause, by all means, please feel free as far as to reach out to them. Look out as far as for their website. And also, I believe you guys have a podcast coming up as well. So that's definitely.
The podcast is going to be playful, though. It's going to have some serious content on it, but you're also going to get to see me and JoJo in rare form. So it's gonna, it's meant to bring some laughter, but at the same time, we're going to be touching on some serious subject line. And so it's going to be, I'm praying, that it goes off the way it needs to go off. But I'm interviewing my psychiatrist. So it's going to be dope. It's going to be that'll be the first one that we post, and then after that, it'll be something consistently. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe too, as far as that, we also have room at the table for you and Joe as well,
Thank
as far as for having like, your own TV show and different things like that. So we can definitely talk about more of that and see on how, that can come into,
you.
fruition
Yeah.
rather. And yeah, I mean, this has just been absolutely amazing. So I'm just trying to see if anybody else has anything else left to say, and probably going to be a bit more, but we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys.
All
This
right.
has been absolutely amazing.
All
For anyone that's looking as far as to be interviewed and would love to be on the podcast, by all means, please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone of my fellow co-hosts, from Dr. James to Chrissy to Roosevelt, Helen Clueless. We would love as far as to spotlight you. In addition, as well, if you're looking as far as to be on radio or TV, like I mentioned, we have a spot for you as well. So it's just a matter of whether you're passionate and whether you're truly committed. If so, let's have a conversation. So until then, guys, I appreciate your time. I know it's getting late. This has been a very special interview for me because, I mean, I get to speak to another New Yorker, and it's a beautiful thing. I mean, she still got the accent. Joe got the
I
accent.
know.
Mine's I got
Look, my sister
somewhat.
told me that the other day. She was like, "Girl, you are definitely a New Yorker again." Because I was in VA for so long.
Yeah,
I was sounding
yeah,
a little country
man.
for a little while.
I can't get away from it.
They tell me that too. Me being down here in Atlanta, but the New York definitely comes out. It
That's
comes out for sure.
that's
So
uh,
New York state of mind.
exactly. Well,
So,
thank you so much
well,
for the opportunity, Shawn. I appreciate it.
absolutely, and we're definitely going to talk more, and we're going to close this out by stating if what we've stated on here, ladies and gentlemen, either motivated, transform, or inspired at least one person, and may God be the glory, and we take no credit for absolutely none of it. Again, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you guys so much. By His grace and mercy, look forward to seeing you all on the next episode, which will be coming to you soon. Peace and love, family.
Thank you.
Absolutely.